in-person quizzes and no partial credit. But what about accountability? This doesn't work unless the system makes the students master, right? Because they don't want to master. And the only reason, students don't learn for the sake of learning. We all know that typically. Maybe in the junior or senior year, but freshmen and sophomores, when they're picking up these skills, not usually. My grading scale changed immensely in 2010 when I visited this conference, and every year it just changes. And so next year, I'm sure, I didn't know this summer I'll change again, but the system's got us, whatever your system is, it has to support mastery. And what I mean by that is, I have not completely gotten rid of partial credit. I still have a weekly 100-point test or 100-point summative project. I do a lot of project stuff because this does not take much time in my class, these quizzes and this whole ACT stuff. It is a small portion. I am still running my curriculum that I have. And we'll talk about that more later, but I have a 100-point test graded with minimum partial credit. I'm getting away from it. I call critical errors here. I can show you a critical error. I make a joke with my wife when I'm home grading after tests. I just die a little inside when this happens, right? Don't we all? I just die a little inside. That's a critical error. -5. I don't care that they know how to divide it. How about x plus 2 quantity squared? Binomial's got to be a trinomial. You know, it isn't a trinomial. -5. So, and again, it has started to work here. Homework, 15 points. That might mean more because of the community I live in. In the perfect world, I don't think I'd give any credit for homework. But there's an expectation that I'll sign it, and there's an expectation I will give credit for in the community. So I do. 15 points, not much. 2 to 3 of those quizzes a week that you saw. 150 points, about 50 problems, 3 problems per points per. That's just how I get the percentages to work out. And I run some very large-scale projects. My algebra students make a payday loan center. So they build a business. Payday loan centers, so they learn the evil of interest in those places. My sophomores are doing stock program with exponential growth and things like that. My geometry class designs a house in Google SketchUp. So that is my curriculum, guys. I don't want you to get lost in this because these quizzes are 35, 40 minutes a week with my class. That's it. Now that I'm through the formative, so they actually know how to master it, I do not spend time doing this. It is what I do to make sure they have mastery. All right? And I hope that makes sense to everybody. I don't teach to this. I have my existing curriculum, my existing projects that I think are really important, and that's what we stick to. You can see the percentages. 50% of their grade is those quizzes. You have to have mastery. You've got to have that foundation. And that means if you can't do the work, you end up hanging out with me again. So, it's flexible. I like this scale, this total points, so if I have thing, I try to keep it says plus 83% on the summative assessment. I'm for sure plus 80%. The goal is to get to less than 4% homework grade, eventually get the homework down to a very small portion, yeah.
I just wanted to stop you quickly. You're talking about that. You said you re-quiz a lot, but then when you give the test, are you testing what was on the last 3 quizzes, let's say?
No. Okay, good. Thank you. No. Okay. The tests are on whatever the current material is in the thing. To get to the quiz, I have to have mastery. So what I mean is, I'll just say, I think there are a lot of students that learn by testing. What I mean by that, they don't do enough to learn the material until they've tested on it a couple times. So every week I test them on, in geometry, we're doing, circles and segments. All right. So I have students right now who, barely did enough homework to understand it. I'm going to bomb it today while you're talking. And I'll go circle on segments on the next test and the next one. And once I've seen, and this is probably weird, once I've seen the class mastered it, it goes from being a test item to being a possible quiz item for that class. So the quiz is right, wrong, it's mastered. The subject I put on the quiz should be mastered subjects. The test I use more informative. They're supposed to be something, but I'm in the reality of my students don't care to do homework. They're just doing it enough so they hand it in and I don't yell at them, right? And a lot of those kids are learning on that weekly Friday test. So does that kind of answer your question, or did I?
You don't retest them?
Sure. If I want to retest those two, you bet, I'll retest those. But then also, then I want to count it flush for retest. Those are the words. What I mean by that is I will have them redo problems, come in and show me. I don't want to say it's painful, but it's painful. I want to have them work as hard as I would have to work for retest. All right, does that make sense? Okay. And I don't have a lot of retests. I also don't test on anything I teach this week. So if I teach Monday through Thursday, and I said circle and savings, I taught that last week. We did warm up on it every day this week, and I was there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But the actual lessons and the homework for that material is last week. And that's the recursive things I do and go wrong with. So I'm always lagging a week, allowing time theoretic for mastery. And you know how that goes. Some of your good students, some of your hard workers, that works great for them. The students who don't work real hard, blow it on the test, and then they start to learn. Oh, I blew it on the test, Mr. We were doing this. How did I do it? They'll be the ones that say, oh, I saw it, I knew it, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't remember how to do it. They give you that answer on the test. My homework policy, we got to talk about this one point. Two things about it. It's boilerplate. You don't need to read this, please don't. It's boring, but it's boilerplate. But at the bottom, I give myself the allowance to grade math notation. Some people really don't agree with me, but this is what I do. So if I have a 90% test, I can go to 95 and I can go to 85. And what I mean by that is if you have a horrible test and you write in the answer and you come to the bottom, you didn't have room, and then you start curving around the paper, I mean, if you laugh, I see this, and then they circle the right answer here. Yeah, I give them credit, and then I'll take off 5 points on the front cover. Because I'm grading notation, communication. Students who check every answer, like on the easy one-step equation and stuff, and actually show me a check, I'll add points on that test. I'll take that 90 and 95. I give myself the allowance to move. I hardly ever move 8%. That's not real realistic, but I give myself the allowance to move plus or minus 8% on any raw score, anytime I want. And I do it under a baccalaureate scale. The other thing, don't go on, is I have this beautiful line. We have a workplace. The homework assignment is not done when the student comes to class. It meant that they either didn't understand it or didn't have enough time. The time and help will be provided that day at 3:05, which is the end of our day. I came out of a machine shop. I was a foreman, engineer for about a dozen years before I taught. Go ahead. This is your job. My only rule in my whole class is our classroom is our workplace. That's the rule. So it's a workplace. So whatever the rules of workplace are. And does that lead to some discipline issues? Yeah, probably. But I'm pretty laid back and I can handle chaos. So every year I send home a homework policy letter. And then it has that there and it gets a parent signature. And I get that day one before there's even a homework assignment. And every year, now small rural community, I get them all back. Every parent signs it. It's also Russian roulette, I tell them, because if I can't stay that day, I won't make you stay that day. And you know, is there days that you don't hand your homework, I might not make you stay? Absolutely. You take the chance. The other big thing I'll brag about, you get very few chances. There's one study done, there's very few things in high school they've shown that relate to pay in later life. And I hate to say it, high school just is not, so your pay is not a big indicator of what you do, except one thing. And I don't know if you've heard this. The more math you take in high school, not the grades you get, not the courses you take, but the more years of math, the more money you make. And I say it all the time. The more math you take, the more money you make. It is a study done in 2004 by Rose and Bettis. It's the first thing I talk about here. And I address this. This is on the internet if you're interested in it. At judaschool.com, I'll show you that at the end, but all parents sign it. It just goes through why homework's important, but really it's after that signature at the bottom, so I have the ability. And in the farming community, you gotta make sense. I have some kids I know I can't feed, even though they signed it. If they are milking, so then okay, you're in, I come to school early, so the other thing is make them come early. You don't want to get run out of town on a rail. But, so, here we are. Is it working? It'd be funny if at this point I said, no, it's going to be right? You guys sat through this, that'd be funny. So is it working? All right, before I tell you, I started in Jude at 06. Let's be clear about who I am. Emergency license. September 1st, 2006 was my first day in the classroom ever. Never student called. Just came in and talked. Kind of needed health insurance. Pretty hard to work without it. So when I say my first test group, I think of it this way. 06 freshmen, 07 sophomores, 08 juniors. So when we talk about ACT, the kids that I either helped or, no offense, screwed up would start in 2008. And if we take a look here at the ACT scores in the years, 19, state average is 21, right? 21.4. The sample size on this, I looked just before I started, was 7. I had 2 head toppers. You know, 2 kids, I can't screw up an A student, right? You right? We can't screw up A students. 21.4, so not as good as that number looked, all right? The other 4 did not do well. 2010, 20.6. This is when I came in and I started instituting some of these things, and I had to work through progression. 2011, 24. Now again, I had some head toppers, but the sample size was bigger, and the 24 is a lot higher than that 21. All right? And then 2012, what I would term to be an average Judah class. How's that for an answer? I think it was sample size 12, 22.4. And I got some exciting news on Wednesday. I just had 16 students take it, and the guidance counselor got me their averages, and the average 22.93. We're going to round that to 23, just so I feel really good. All right? 23. Don't screw up the easy. Don't screw up the easy. 40 minutes a week in class. That is it. Can't stress that enough. We're running the curriculum. I'm not teaching these questions, right, wrong, or indifferent. And it does mean that you have to look a kid in the eye and be serious while failing them. If they don't pick it up. I know I really like you, but you gotta get these quizzes right. I'm here before school, I'm here after school. If you don't pick those quizzes, you're going to be here again next year. Just can't let you on. You just can't do it next year. How can you do it? You know, that would be one of the scary conversations at the end. But I've done that with students, and that's sometimes when you see the action, right? Once the world is above them and they can't get out. So I wanted to graph this. I wanted to do something statistical. So I graphed. Wow, what a disaster! I graphed the composite dots, and I put a curve in, and I threw an arrow up. But that doesn't tell us anything. I looked at that for like half an hour and said that doesn't prove anything. So let's do something else. Because I felt in my gut, guys, that this worked. All right, I felt in my gut. I knew these students were better at math. I could see the averages, but there has to be something I can track so I can look as I go forward. And the question is, what is it? Now, if you have bigger schools, you can use your sample size. I can't. I can't. So I threw the dots up and I graphed a linear here, line in blue, and then a red composite. And composite's really following the math increase right now. And then I threw a polynomial regression, and I could see that I kind of bottomed out in 06. I don't know who was teaching then. But we're coming up or curving up. But again, that doesn't show us anything. And then I think I found the 2 things I can measure. Because I know in my gut, this is working. So I did a 2-year moving average trying to even out these small sample sets. And I start to see some improvement. And I go further back than when I started teaching. I can see that this is going. And I put the national, or the state average, not the national, state average for math, 22.1 last I looked. And it might be a little different, but that's what I found. And I can see, especially the last 2 years. And again, put the 20, if you bring in my other class and average it, it's almost a flat line, 2013. One problem with Prezi is if you update your Excel sheets, it doesn't update your presentation. But 2013 would be almost flat across. So, but this is the one I think you should measure. And this is the one I measure now. The ACT has set a benchmark at 22 for math. And if you don't know about it, what it is if you score 22 or better, the ACT says you are ready for college algebra. And the average in the United States is 45% in 22 or better. That's it on the ACT. So only 45% ACT say are ready. And we've been here at the conference, and you've heard 4 out of 10 students are taking remedial math at college. All right. Now, and if you've been around Platteville, they're doing a lot of work, UW Platteville, and I'm actually sitting with a couple of professors working on a grant